Hello everyone, welcome to Alright. Hello everyone, welcome to Adda 247. My name is Sachin Barwal. This is for the foundation course of UPSC CSE 2023, 24 and 25 in the English medium. Now, let's move forward. Today's class will be probably further, mainly how to prepare notes regarding UPSC Civil Services examination. Now, one of the first questions that comes in the mind of a student is, why should I prepare notes? Other than the next question comes is how to prepare the notes, right? Now, let's move forward. Okay. So, why should I prepare the notes, right? In your mind, usually from time to time the things come that, should I write? Should I not write? Should I move on or not? Hence, let's talk about some of the reasons. One of the most relevant reason is vast syllabus. See, when we talk about UPSC CSE, almost everything that is out there is part of your syllabus. But at the end of the day, 70 to 80% of the syllabus can be created into a concise material. That's where the questions or most of the questions will come from. Hence, this vast syllabus can be compressed. But at the end of the day, you will need to revisit this syllabus again and again. And hence, that's why by creating relevant notes, you will be able to take care of this vast syllabus. Now, other thing regarding this is dynamic exam. Now, most of you are thinking, if this is a dynamic exam, why should I have static notes? But to be honest, regarding this dynamic exam, static part is also important. At the end of the day, we are noticing that, especially after 2016, there's a changing pattern in UPSC CSE. From time to time, they have started adding dynamic dimensions to the static dimensions. And hence for that, along with the knowledge of the dynamic dimension, clear conceptual clarity regarding the static dimension should also be there. And thus, this is why your notes preparation becomes very important. Specifically because this static knowledge will be used with your dynamic knowledge and hence will help you in preparing for the exam in a better way and also dealing with the questions in a better way. Alright. Now, the next point. These notes are to be prepared from the multiple sources. For example, I will take example of polity. When we study polity, mainly, one of the first thing we always tell to the student is that you should refer to the NCERT. Now, along with the NCERT, you are supposed to refer to the different textbooks. I know most of you know about the name of them, Lakshmikant. Along with it, some of you might be using D.D. Basu and other ones might be using Subhashi Kashyap. So up to you, whichever one you use, but at the end of the day, there will be multiple sources ranging from your NCERT to your newspaper editorials to these textbooks. And hence, you will have to create a concise material from these multiple sources. And thus, for this main reason, your notes become helpful for you. Other reason now, one of the most important reason is time constraint. See, at the end of the day, many students must have told you, or your friends would have told you, others would have told you, while studying for UPSC CSE, even 24 hours or less, and we hope that the day was made of the 48 hours. Unfortunately, that is not possible. Thus, all of us have to work with a simple or the same time constraint, that is 24 hours. Along with it, most of you must have noticed that there is a very small time gap between the prelims and the mains, and thus this time constraint becomes even more highlighted during that time. Thus, since you have to revise multiple things in the mains or before the mains arrives, you will have to refer to your notes. Along with it, there is a possibility. See, at the end of the day, there are many of you who will be preparing for the exam along with working. Some of you might be working in private jobs, in the government jobs, or might be homemakers, or engaged in different professions ranging from business to services to others. Now see, their time constraint issue becomes even more relevant. Hence, if you have precise, concise notes, you will be able to deal with your time in a better way. Exam from time to time. Multiple sources, definitely at the end of the day, we will have to touch each and every relevant textbook out there it is. That's why you must have noticed that most of the UPSC CSE students' books or rooms are filled with the either notes or books or newspaper or magazine and number of things out there. Now, moving to the time constraint, as I said, all of us have equal amount of time, but some of us might not have that much amount of time. So this is why notes preparation helps us in revisiting important areas from time to time. Alright, let's move forward. Since we have answered the query of why should I prepare notes, let's talk about the notes itself, right? Okay. Now, notes. See, there are key four concepts of the notes or key four identifications of the notes. First is it should be precise. Precise means to the point. A student while preparing notes should avoid all irrelevant information. For example, going too much deep into one thing would lead to your wastage of energy and wastage of time. Thus, exactly to the point. Next is concise. See, if you are writing n number of things in the exam, at the end of the day, it's of no use. Then you should study the textbook directly. Notes are meant to cover more in less time. Thus, dimension of the note becomes extremely important. So, precise means to the point exactly, whereas concise means completely compressed so that you won't be able to, or you would be able to save time. Simple as that. Hence, relevant. Now, see class, when the dimension of, students, dimension of relevant or relevance comes in, here we move to what? That whether something is relevant from the examination point of view or not. For example, most of the students or many of my students I have come across usually talk about that current affairs is too much, current affairs is too much, or newspaper is too big. I usually suggest that either you should create your notes right from the source, that is newspaper, because it has been checked multiple times, whereas either from the government publications. Now when they talk about this newspaper, they're usually saying, sir, we do not get time of 3 to 4 hours every day just to read the newspaper. Now the problem with that is that most of the students are not able to find out what is relevant and what is not relevant, and thus your notes should not contain unnecessary jargons. Rather than that, your notes should be completely precise, to the point, and hence that's why relevance becomes important. Now the question is relevant for whom? You or the exam? See, all of us have different spectrum of mindset, and hence everybody likes different type of news. But at the end of the day, we have to only pick up those news or those current affairs that are relevant from the examination point of view. Most of the time, for example, let's say a few years ago there was a news that India got accepted into Australia group. Right? Now, a student might be talking about that who was this president who got the presidency of this Australia group, or how was the journey of India towards getting an entry into Australia group. Now, along with it, the newspaper must be writing some sort of history regarding the Australia group. Now that becomes relevant for the exam. When we became the member, and also that what is the significance of this group, why was it formed, because that thing will be mentioned in the newspaper too, and if it is not mentioned, then since Australia group itself has been highlighted, we should go to the website of the Australia group and hence check their about and create relevant notes from them regarding when it was formed and what is the purpose of this. Thus relevance becomes extremely important along with precision and concise notes. Now when I talk about relevance, most of the students will be thinking, how do I find out whether something is relevant or not? Now see, one of the biggest ways of finding this, or one of the best ways of finding it whether something is relevant or not, is by us referring to previous year question papers. By analyzing something like questions from 2015 to 2021, you will be able to understand what exactly is UPSC Civil Services Examination is demanding from you. When you will be able to understand the demand, you will be able to find out whether something is relevant from the examination point of view or it is irrelevant from the examination point of view. At the end of the day, if you are studying irrelevant things from the examination point of view, you are just wasting your energy, the energy or the precious energy that can be used somewhere else in studying even further. Alright, now the last dimension of the notes, although for many is not that important, but at the end of the day it does makes a huge difference, is it should be understandable. Now when I talk about it should be understandable, it should be understandable to you. At the end of the day, see, while preparing notes, we have to understand that these are being made for us. So you already know your level of comprehension, whether we are able to understand things right from the point, or do we require a little bit of explanation. At the end of the day, each one of us are different, and hence the note making strategy would be a bit different. But create notes in such a way that even if you have no idea why did I wrote it somewhere or why did I write it here, you should be able to understand it clearly. Understood? Hence, at the end of the day, precision, notes being concise, their relevance regarding the examination, and being able to understand them any time of the day are the four most basic points while creating the notes. Alright, since we have talked about the features of the notes, let's move forward to the most important question, how to prepare the notes. Now, see, just like before cooking the food, you require things, na? And hence, for your notes too, regarding the UPSC Civil Services Examination exactly, we will also talk about the resources or the requirements. Basic one, or very important for you, especially for creating the foundation of your conceptual building, are the NCERT books. Most of the time we discuss how 6th to 12th class NCERT books are very important for you, especially in case of those who are not in touch with these subjects from time to time. For them it becomes extremely important, since they start right from the lowest point and then they build you up slowly and steadily, and hence by the time you reach till the 12th class book, your foundation is already well laid. Next is textbooks. Now the question arrives, textbooks of what type? Usually different authors. Textbooks, NCERT books are also textbooks, but they are specific type of books. When we talk about textbooks, it's mainly those books that are outside the purview of the NCERT. For example, in case of geography, most of you must have heard about Go Chen Leong or GC Leong, whereas in case of polity, everybody, I have already taken the name, M. Lakshmikant or D.D. Vasu or Subhashi Kashyap. Other, for example, in economics, refer to Mishra and Puri, and hence a number of books are there that are used as textbooks. All of them are good, but at the end of the day you will have to choose which one you are comfortable with and which one are easy to make notes by you. See, at the end of the day, the key here is you. Whichever textbook you are comfortable with, whichever you understand a better way and hence helps you in making better notes, should be chosen by you. Understood? Rather than going for how people are suggesting or something like that, try to give a read to every book and then choose whichever is the one in which you are most comfortable with. Now the last but not the least, the newspaper. Now see class, whenever most of the time we are not able to continue with the newspaper, but I would say that wherever possible, you should directly choose the newspaper or some current affair digest if possible. But at the end of the day, your own notes from the newspaper will always be better in comparison to other current affairs. Reason being, you read them, you wrote them, and thus you will retain them. One of the most important part of the newspaper that most of the students try to avoid, but to be honest regarding this exam is unavoidable, are the editorials. Yes, see, the reason behind the importance of the editorials is the fact that these editorials are what we call a gold mine of knowledge. Eventually, these are all curated, experts are writing them most of the time, and hence multiple or multi-dimensional knowledge is given out from these editorials. And hence you can create multiple type of notes from a single editorial if read properly. Hence, let's come back. Requirements mainly are NCERT books, textbooks that are different one from the NCERT, and the newspaper, specifically not skipping the editorials, especially the relevant editorials. Now moving forward. Alright, how to approach the note making or how to approach the whole process of creating the notes. First of all, see, usually this approach can be used in multiple places, so is in your notes. Hence, let's come back to the first one, identification. One of the most important thing is identifying something, whether is it relevant from the examination point of view or not. See, at the end of the day, everything is relevant, but some things are more relevant in comparison to other. Hence, you should identify that, this seems relevant. You should ask yourself, if you were the question setter, would you ask a question from here or not? If you feel like that yes, this is very relevant, you should, as we say, identify it as important. Once it has been identified, you should check for relevance. Is it relevance from the examination point of view? You already have the syllabus in your mind, and since you have analyzed the previous year question papers of the UPSC CSE, you will be able to gauge how relevant something is. You feel like, this is relevant and something around this has been asked by the examination body from time to time. So what you will do? You will find it as relevant. Alright, it is relevant. Now the next approach that we take is compression. At the end of the day, I told you notes has to be concise. If they are not concise, then they are not notes. Then they simply become the textbook again, a bigger textbook, or maybe a textbook written in your own language and mainly in your own handwriting. Thus, compression becomes extremely important. For example, removing the unnecessary jargon or unnecessary words, and then, or one of the best thing would be to compress it in such a way that only important points are mentioned there, whereas rest are left alone. Since most of the time the important points will be asked or will be relevant for the whole paragraph. Now next point is articulation. See students, when most of the time articulation becomes extremely important due to multiple reasons. Multiple reasons like, for example, you will be writing mains answers, hence articulation will be very important there too. Articulation will also be important in essay writing along with the general studies. So when you are writing notes in your own language, you are actually helping yourself in creating answers, articulating answers for your mains practice too. Hence, there is no loss in articulating the notes yourself. Hence, articulation here helps you in understanding things better, along with it practicing for mains even further. Therefore, you are doing a dual work, creating notes too, along with it articulating something that will help you in your mains examination. Understood? Alright, let's move forward. See, last but not the least, the updation part. When we talk about the updation part, you are supposed to update your notes from time to time. See, notes like ancient India, medieval and modern, very less information comes that might require you to update your notes, but usually they are static. But subjects like economics, subject like extremely dynamic subjects. Since they are extremely dynamic, you will have to keep yourself updated from time to time, and your notes have to be updated. For example, the Puttu Swami judgment, right to privacy. Earlier, right to privacy was not part of our fundamental rights, although it was available in Article 21, but later it was explicitly mentioned in the judgment, and hence due to that, your right to privacy has to be updated in Article 21. So something like that, keep an eye on. Another thing, for example, 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, the National Judicial Appointments Commission, NJAC as we call it. So NJAC, quite a long time ago it came, but as I said earlier, collegium system, it ends the collegiate system, and Jack comes in. Then later judicially reviewed and removed. Hence, this thing happened in a small time frame. So you will have to continuously be update with the things, and from time to time you will have to update your notes too, or else they are threatened with becoming irrelevant or unupdated, and hence at the end of the day there's a possibility that you might write something in the exam, or you might be going in the exam with a different mindset that you read in your notes, but in reality it might have changed. So it's better to keep yourself updated, along with it continuous updating of the notes. Alright, since we have discussed this, how to why the notes are important, approach, and how they are supposed to be, let's see the key highlights of the notes itself. Alright, we will say one of the key highlights, or few of the key highlights from this thing was, first of all, we have to be completely precise, to the point regarding your notes, that no unnecessary stuff is in there. Whatever is important, only that is in there. Next is, you have to be concise, which means that we will have to keep our notes crisp and short, thus to the point, brief, and only talking about the important matters, thus concise and relevant. Same case, remain relevant. At the end of the day, if it is not relevant, then what is it doing in my notes? Hence, therefore, it's very important to remain relevant and keep our notes updated too. That's why the last one is continuous updating, that update the notes from time to time and keep on revising them from time to time. See, when you are continuously updating the notes from time to time, you are automatically revising them. You will look at them, okay, this was the thing, okay. Hence, along with the updation, you are not just updating yourself, you are also updating your static knowledge notes. When you file the notes, please do not mix them up. Keep them separated. Polity notes different, geography notes different, whatever subject you are approaching, their notes should be kept differently due to the fact that you will be requiring these notes from time to time for a longer term. Usually, if you are getting into this seriously, you will be putting in a lot of time in here, and hence these notes will remain relevant for quite a long time. Therefore, try to create notes in such a way that if you want a polity note, you should be able to take it out. If you want a geography note, you should be able to take it out. Hence, complete documentation and precision in keeping these notes. So else it will become a sort of as we say, khichdi, that you won't be able to understand where what is written and why did I write it here. So at the end of the day, these are the key highlights you can take from the my class of how to take notes or how to create notes. Alright, now we will talk about my subject that I will be taking, mainly Indian polity. Right, now see, polity subject, usually students, some of the students find it very easy, some find it mediocre. See, there are n number of students, as per, some people say that polity loves me, some people say polity does not love me, but at the end of the day, see, we will have to love all the subjects due to the fact that UPSC demands it. Now, key highlights of the Indian polity is that, first, the demand, mainly demand by the exam. Alright, sources, that means that which sort of sources or what sources are the most relevant one for the exam, mainly from the examination point of view, and how to approach this. See, all three are very relevant dimensions of studying the Indian polity. From my personal experience, see, I can tell you that Indian polity, if your concepts are very clear regarding the polity, it is one of the best subjects out there to be approached in the exam first. Alright, let's move forward with this. First of all, demand of the exam itself. See, at the end of the day, since we will be studying polity, what exactly does the exam demands from us, right? Okay, so first is conceptual clarity. Concepts like federal system, concept like separation of power, concept like written constitution, unwritten constitution, mainly different concepts are, and ranging from mainly your concepts of different writs to different doctrines. At the end of the day, the polity consists of multiple concepts, and all of these concepts are very relevant and are used in day-to-day polity or in day-to-day administration of the country, ranging from judiciary to executive. Hence, these concepts are very important. One of the key things about this concept is that most of these concepts can be connected to life. For example, doctrine of doctrine of the eclipse. Doctrine of eclipse mainly came into picture when we were talking about pre-constitutional laws, that the constitution comes and eclipses the pre-constitutional laws that are, what we say, inconsistent with it. Now these sort of concepts had to be known by a candidate or an aspirant. Reason being, these concepts will be used later when you are trying to understand the articles of the constitution. Next is the relevant use. Now what relevant use? Usually Supreme Court from time to time uses different concepts of the polity or different concepts of our subject while giving judgments. Along with it, most of the concepts are used by the government too when they are working. Different, for example, public policy, like for example the concept or the DPSPs, concept of the directive principles of state policies, is used by the state system itself, and hence these things remain extremely relevant in our everyday life, ranging from fundamental duty like respecting our flag, respecting our national emblems to fundamental right of freedom of speech or freedom of movement that allows you to go here and there or speak whatever you want, depending on the within the four walls of the law. So these things remain relevant, and thus most of the time we have noticed that the UPSC Civil Service Examination touches on these relevant uses in day-to-day life. One of the best example would be, for example, last time when the question came, they talked about in 2021, UPSC 2021, a question came that asked about the status of the right to property. Now, one of the very complex question, but at the end of the day, this question was approachable if you were able to understand the concepts, or there was a conceptual clarity regarding difference between fundamental rights, constitutional rights, and legal rights and other rights. Alright, next point is recent edition. Now this becomes part of your current affairs, recent edition or amendments. Now when I talk about recent edition or amendments, it mainly means if something has been changed or something has been added. Most of the time this will be mentioned, this will be debated in the question, not in question paper, in newspapers. It keeps on working like this. Like for example, it will be news, then there will be opinions regarding it, whether it was good, whether it was bad, neutral, all sides of all hues and colors will be shown in the newspaper by the newspaper, by the relevant editors as per their requirement. So since they are part of the current affairs, they are also part of your polity, it becomes extremely important for an individual or an aspirant to find out what is going on. Whether an amendment is there, whether a new clause has been added, a clause has been removed, or whatever has happened, you will have to know about it. Thus, by finding this also connects to our notes in the last slide, that updation. This will require an updation. From time to time, you will have to find out whatever amendment is there and amend or update your notes regarding it. Now, in terms of exam, use of static and dynamic concepts together. Alright, this is extremely important thing in the examination now, specifically after the 2016. Exam is becoming more and more dynamic, but the static portion remains the same. What we have noticed is that exam is using a brilliant mixture of static and dynamic concepts. So you have to mix not one concept only, that a specific concept has to be there to approach the question. Rather than you will have to use multiple concepts together to approach the question itself. And because the exam has itself become very dynamic and requires you to think in that way. At the end of the day, the future bureaucrats will be requiring that, due to the fact that even the problems are becoming dynamic in nature. And hence due to that we require dynamic people, and therefore the question itself are changing its form. Now one of the most important thing, sources, where to study from, right? So let's start with, everybody knows this, NCERT 12th. Usually for the polity part I'm saying that class 6 to 12th, as I have said earlier too, see what happens is NCERT start from right from the basic. One by one they will keep on increasing their level of hardness, and eventually by the 12th class, by the time most of the complex concepts will be there, the foundation of your polity concepts will already be laid. You will be able to understand what the book is talking about, and you will be able to understand or analyze the situation that is being asked from you. For example, see, in the prelims part they will be asking you mainly mixture of static and current. But in the NCERTs remain relevant due to the fact that They are very approachable books, very easy to read, and to be honest, most of the time the word or the lines used are very clear. They are not that complex for most of the students, and hence they are sort of stepping stone to become or to learn that is are highly relevant. Next I use or I always suggest is Bare Act of the Indian Constitution. Now see, Bare Act of the Indian Constitution is available in the online form as well as in the hard form. It is up to the students, they want to buy hard copy or they want to download the Bare Act. But at the end of the day, Bare Act helps us in understanding the constitution itself. First of all, see, in our textbooks, for example, that will be coming next, like D.D. Basu, Subhash Kashyap, M. Lakshmikant, and number of books are there. Most of these books have deep explanation regarding the various concepts mentioned in the constitution. Whatever the Union Territory of India means, or sorry, the Territory of India means, or Union of India means, or what is the status of Union Territory, what is the status of states, what sort of majority required, what that majority means. For example, when this is simple majority, what does it exactly means? That direct there will be information regarding the relevant judgments of Supreme Court. And most of the time, these relevant judgments of Supreme Court will help a student in understanding what the Supreme Court's position is nowadays regarding a certain article. Now, last thing, but to be honest, this remains as relevant as possible, the newspaper. Specifically editorials, due to the fact that most of the time many experts write these editorials, and these experts write in such a beautiful way that you will be able to understand Basu, Subhash Kashyap and Lakshmikant, up to you, whichever you are comfortable with. And the last thing is newspaper editorials. So newspaper is important because Supreme Court judgments come from time to time. Editorials remain important due to the fact that first of all they will be giving us relevant information, explaining different things. Along with it, they will also be there to give us conceptual clarity regarding different things, ranging from analysis to coming to a certain, coming to a certain point or coming to or deducing a certain point that, okay, this is how I believe. At the end of the day, your opinion matters too. So reaching that opinion, for that you should be able to analyze, and hence for that analysis you should be able to do this. Alright, you should be able to read the editorials, and hence this is why reading editorials becomes extremely important. Alright, moving forward to the approach. Now the approach of the examination, right? As it is relevant, I was about to come to this, you already know this. Start with the NCERT. At the end of the day, see, even when the house is being built now, we have to go deep. The higher the building is, the deeper its foundation will be, and it also applies to us humans. At the end of the day, what they say is that if you have to sign like a shen, you will have to burn like a sun. Books. Now see, this is not something, please understand this, that there's a possibility that you will have to approach this NCERT or other textbooks one after the another. Once the foundation has been laid, as I said, we will move on to the textbooks. It's as I said earlier too, it's up to you, D.D. Basu, Subhash Kashyap or M. Lakshmikant, up to you. But at the end of the day, one reading will not help. We will have to go through it multiple times, because see, every time you will read it now, you will find out that okay, something new is in there. So NCERT lays down the foundation of ours, and once the foundation has been laid, we will move to the textbooks, and then we will move to what we call the continuous updating part. Now see, I have written the newspaper part mainly in the last, but at the end of the day, when you start with the NCERT, you start reading the newspaper along the same time, and hence actually newspaper is something that will remain with you continuously. Time to time you will be reading the newspaper, you will be understanding the concepts. Along with it, first you will finish your NCERTs, then you will be studying, then you will be doing further textbooks, then reading your notes and a number of things. But at the end of the day, one thing will always remain constant in this, and that thing is the newspaper. Specifically the editorial part that usually most of the students try to skip, but it becomes your best friend in this preparation. Specifically, I can specifically say this in the in the part of polity, the editorials are extremely important for the students. Reason being, editorials give you extremely high clarity, the power of analysis and deduction. So at the end of the day, we will have to understand that continuous as I said, continuous updating through newspaper. This is a dynamic part. This will keep on going. It will continue. But NCERT part, textbook, they will come one after the another. Once your foundations are laid well, you just need to read the newspaper and you will be able to understand which concept they are talking about. But till then, the approach remains the same. You have to do NCERT, and this has to be done in multiple labs. This cannot be done in only single lab. You will have to do it again and again and again till you get that level of conceptual clarity that when we talk about something like, for example, doctrine of eclipse or doctrine of severity or doctrine of essential practices, all of this should be able to strike in your mind. Till then, you will have to keep on studying these things. Along with it, as I said, continuous updating through newspaper. I cannot stress enough, newspaper is both important for your polity as well as for your notes, because at the end of the day, whatever is relevant will be in the newspaper and it becomes part of the current affairs. Along with it, as I said, the examination itself has become dynamic. So that. Alright class, see, before this, I will have to tell you that, see, when we are approaching the new exam, going to the exam itself, I always say, UPSC CSE will be approaching. My key highlights will be, keep your stress level in control. Everything will be fine. WhatsApp to 9176 7824 2792. We also have a website adda247.com. So we usually have courses for UPSC, UPPCS, BPSC, MPPCS and other state PCS. For subscription, see, we have specific UPSC Adda 247 channel and we will appreciate